Hello, welcome to NetTuts Plus. In today's lesson, I thought we'd go over a new, very interesting editor that's currently being developed by some of the guys at Adobe, and that editor is called Brackets. So this editor is a bit unique. It's still in development, which means I probably wouldn't recommend that you use it in your day-to-day coding. But that said, I think there's some really interesting ideas here, and in 2013, I think you're really going to see Brackets give some of the other popular editors like Sublime Text 2 and TextMate run for their money. So rather than sticking on the main page, why don't we just dig into it and I'll show you some of the cool things that I like. So if you want to download it, just go to Fork Me on GitHub, click on the downloads link, and download the latest sprint for either Mac or Windows. Sorry Linux guys, nothing for you just yet. Okay, so once you've downloaded that and you open it up, you'll see something along the lines of this. And in fact, you'll probably see the source code for the editor. And that's one of the cool things about Brackets is it was built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, as opposed to something like Python or Objective-C. And what this means is, as long as you have some front-end experience, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you have the ability to configure and extend the editor using the skills that you already have. And in fact, if I were to go to Debug, Show Developer Tools, and if I switch over to Chrome, you can see that we can actually inspect the editor itself and make modifications, which is really neat. But for now, why don't we get started with a very simple front-end project, and I'll show you what it can do. So first, we need to create a file. I can go to File, New File, or hit Command-N, and let's just create an index.html file. Next, I will paste in a snippet here. And now Brackets does have a snippet functionality via an extension, at least at the time of this recording. But in my experience, it doesn't work too darn well, so I'm using Text Expander in this case. But nonetheless, we have a new HTML page, and within an H1, I will write, "Hi there." All right, so now we want to preview this. So rather than maybe switching over to Chrome and then opening the file, I'm simply going to press this little lightning bolt right here for the live preview. So I will click on that. And now if I switch over to Chrome, you'll see that it immediately has loaded our project. Now, if I were to switch back and say, "Hi there, viewers," and I click Save, notice if I come back, I haven't reloaded the page, but it automatically refreshed, hence the live preview. So what this means is because it's built in to the editor, you don't have to worry about maybe downloading some live reload plugin or configuring a browser extension. It just works. So let's hide the sidebar with Shift-Command-H, and now as we make modifications, it'll immediately show up upon save. How are you today? Save, and now that automatically updates. And what's great about this is it just works. I've experimented with some live reload plugins, and you can get them to work, but sometimes it feels like randomly they will just stop working and you have to reload. In Brackets, it always works like you would expect. Now, let's import a CSS file. So why don't we do this right here? Notice it does have IntelliSense, and we'll do a style sheet, and then the href will be style.css. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show the sidebar again and create that file. Hide the sidebar again, and I will write body, background red, and click save. Now, I believe when you first add a style sheet, you might need to manually refresh, but once you do, it should be back on track. So now if I hit background green, notice how the browser is just automatically updating there. Color is white, font family is sans serif. It's very quick. And I also want you to note that it is highlighting the area around the currently active selector. So if I were to switch over and now we're going to style the paragraph tag and say font style is italic, notice that it is highlighting the associated elements within the browser. And of course, if I were to switch over back to index.html, I have a couple ways I can do this, by the way. I can bring back the sidebar with Shift-Command-H and switch manually, or I can go to Navigate, Quick Open, and on the Mac it's Shift-Command-O. So I could hit Shift-Command-O, and then similar to what you might get in Sublime, I can type the name in the file and switch over. Great. So now notice if I were to add another para tag, and I click Save, when we go back to our CSS, and for now we'll still manually do it, so Shift-Command-O, Style, and I click within the selector, now it's going to select every occurrence of that. And I think that can be really, really helpful. But now on to the next feature. We're still manually switching back and forth from the index file to the style sheet. It would be nice if that was all contained within one view. So let's see how we might do that. Well, if I go back to index.html and I click on one of the tags that I need to edit, watch what happens if I hit Command E, or I can go to Navigate, Quick Edit. All right, let's see what that does. Command E, and now notice that it does a couple of things. First, once again, we're within our CSS, so it automatically highlights the thing it's associated with, but now it provides this pop-up editor, and we can make our change. Font weight is bold, and that's automatically updated. And if we want, we can keep that there and continue working in our projects. What's up, viewers? And everything's being automatically updated. If I were to hit Escape, you'll see that will be removed. So let's say we want to edit the heading 1 as well as the 2 paragraph tags. Well, once again, click within the tag. And by the way, you have to click within the tag. If you were to do it as the text, that could be a little difficult to parse. So make sure you click in the tag and press Command E. Now you're editing it. But what if you want to edit the H1 as well? Well, if I were to hit Command E, notice nothing seems to be happening. And that's because there isn't an associated heading 1 tag within the style sheet. So you could either switch over to style.css, or if you wanted, this actually is a view into style.css, and I could add it at the top. H1, color is blue. We're going to make this about as pretty as we possibly can. But now if I were to close that and reopen it, it will know to only show the paragraph. And now that we do have an H1 rule, I can go back and hit Command E, and now notice that we have multiple occurrences. So it's sort of a different take. Normally we would have split panes where you have your index file on the left and style on the right, but maybe this is a little bit more convenient where you're having a little bit more of an intimate interaction between the tag and its associated CSS. Now, if I'm within one of these pop-ups, I can hit Escape and that hides it, or if I bring it back and I'm outside of the pop-ups and I hit Escape, that will remove all of them. So why don't we try something out? Why don't we save this and maybe we will just build the layout for some kind of website. Well, it would be nice if I could take advantage of Prefixes, but that doesn't come natively. But like I said, what's cool about brackets is it's incredibly easy to extend if you have some experience with JavaScript. So why don't we check that out? I've done a quick Google search for brackets extensions, and now you can see they have a list here of everything that's available. So what we want is Zen coding, or what it's referred to as now as Emit. So let's click on that and get it installed. Let's just do an official download for now. So downloads, and there we go, Emit brackets. Now, how would we install this? Well, first, of course, we unzip it, or you can do all of this from the command line. But if I go to Help, Show Extensions folder, all of the extensions that you add will be in User, and you can see here I've added just a handful here. So you notice I've added one for Prefixes, which you can download. I'll demonstrate that shortly, and a couple others. All I need to do, if I open this up, notice it's just JSON and some JavaScript here. This is stuff you know how to do. That's a little intimidating, but it's just because it's compressed. Anyhow, so let's just go ahead and bring it in. And usually it seems that you need to restart brackets. So let's open it back up one more time, make it full screen, and now you can see there's this new Emit tab at the top with all of your shortcuts. So let's see, if we want to expand the abbreviation, we do Command Enter. So let's try this. Div ul li times 4, Command Enter, and now it works. Hi, but now how do I go to the next one? Maybe Command N? Nope, let's go to Emit. Here we go, next edit point, and it looks like it's Option Command Right. So hi, Option Command Right, there, everybody. It's a little odd, but you can configure it if you need to. Let's see some of the other things that we can do. We can also do simple things like it gives us the ability to toggle a comment if we need to. We can wrap things with abbreviations. So basically all of this encoding experience that you have can now be used directly within brackets. Good. That only took a few seconds. So why don't we begin by, once again, moving this to the side. By the way, I'm using a tool called Moom to allow for that. And I'm going to open this up within my browser. There we go. So the first thing I see is we, of course, don't want that green background. So I will edit the body with Command E, remove that, and hit Escape. Next, maybe we will create a div with a class of container, and within it, maybe we will add a header, and as well as a div with a class of main, as well as a footer. All right, I'll hit Command Enter to run that through. Here we'll do H1, and we'll say my website, Command Enter, and then within the main, we'll just say hi there. And within the footer, once again, my website. So now immediately when I hit save, notice that that updates. So if we want to edit the styling for these, why don't I hit Shift-Command-O to go to Style. And let's begin by saying the container. We'll say width of 400 pixels, margin is auto, background is E3, There we go. So let's switch back to index. And now if we ever need to adjust this, I can just hit Command-D. And by the way, something I just realized is it can't be on the tag. It seems like it's a little finicky about when it will let you toggle that little pop-up. So in this case, I'm within the div and I hit Command-D and it won't work. I actually need to be within the class or the ID. So it seems like it just needs some way to target exactly what you want. But we can add a border of 1 pixel solid C5, 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 hit escape. I don't even need to save it, and it's updated within the browser. Cool. But now one thing that I would like is maybe a little bit more feedback on what I'm working with. So when I hover over maybe a color, I'd like to see exactly what that color is. Or if I hover over an image, I'd like to see a pop-up. So let's see how we can do that. It's not provided natively in brackets, but we can take advantage of an extension. Once again, I've browsed back to brackets extensions, and what I want, I happen to know, is called Hover Preview. So let's click on that and switch over to the download link. By the way, of course, you can do this from the console. We're just keeping it simple. So now we're going to download that as a zip file. Once again, let's open up the extensions folder, and we're going to bring this download directly into the user directory. So now if I save this, and notice that it looks like we're using Twitter Bootstrap here, and that's because this is HTML and CSS, so it looks like they're leveraging some of Twitter Bootstrap. So once again, we open up brackets, and if I switch back to style.css, now if I hover over it, notice that it does bring a little preview. Very cool. And this will also work for gradients. Maybe we will get rid of this, and instead let's do a background gradient. Well, we could say background, linear gradient, from the top, and we will go from black to green. Now if I hover over it, notice that we get that little pop-up. And it looks like they need to adjust it to determine whether it should be on top or on the bottom, but that's okay for now. If I scroll down and we hover over it, we can see that, and it's dynamic. So if I want to make that 45 degrees, and I hover over it, now the image has adjusted. Now this also works for images, by the way. If I open up the sidebar with Shift-Command-O, you can see I've added this jobs.jpg file. So if we switch back to index, once again, Shift-Command-O, or I can go to Navigate, and we can go to Next Document with Control-Tab. So that's an easy way to just quickly switch to the next one that you have open. So back within index, why don't we just do it right here? Bring it back to the side so we can see our live preview. And by the way, if you make an edit and you don't see it update, you might just need to refresh, and now it's working because we can see that it's active. So once again, within here, let's bring in an image. And I want you to note that when we set the source, it will automatically show a list of all of our assets. So if we want jobs, now I can add that. And in this case, this is an image of the Tuts Plus jobs board that we just added. So now, notice it, of course, automatically updates in the browser, but if I hover over the image with this plugin, we now get a little preview to show what we're working with. Now, of course, some of the other extensions that you're used to, maybe like Prefixer, that's all there. So if we switch back to style.css, and in this case, we only have the official linear gradient, you could go back to the browser extensions, download it. I'm not going to go through that process in this case. You can do that. But then you have this new option, Edit, Generate CSS Prefixes. So if I were to select this and run it through, notice that that will send it through the Prefixer API and add in any prefixes that you need there. And by the way, it will also remove any that you don't need. A lot of people don't know that. So maybe you have one that doesn't exist, like Microsoft Linear Gradient. Well, if you were to run that through the API, it knows that doesn't exist and it will remove it from your style sheet. Now to finish up for this lesson, let's take a look at just a couple more things. I'm going to come back and let's rename index.html to index.php. And now I'm going to get rid of everything, and all we will do here is echo hi there. Now in this case, I'm not within my htdocs folder, so I need to set up a server. If I switch into the terminal, or in this case iterm2, I'm within that demo directory, so let's set up a quick server with PHP 5.4, and we'll access it at localhost :8888. So if I were to load this, sure enough, that is going to work, but as we know, If we make modifications, no, that's not going to update. And that's because we're not taking advantage of live preview. So let's try that. Let's close this out. And now I'm going to run it, but this time we're going to get this new pop-up, and it wants to know what is the base URL. Well, let's just paste that in, localhost 8888. Now if we run it, you'll see that it does load, and if we make modifications, just as with HTML, that's automatically going to update. And this is especially helpful when you're getting started and you're trying to learn how making this edit to your PHP will affect your document. And it's also good for teaching. I can be showing somebody, say, name is Jeffrey, and we can echo name, and notice that I don't have to reload the browser, it just automatically updates. We'll add my last name on, and now that works. Or if we have a list of names, John, Chuck, Joe, Sally, and you want to demonstrate how maybe doing array pop, how that turns out, let's echo that. Well, now we can see that it does take off the last one. And if we print our names, all of this is immediately being updated within the browser. Now, finally, let's take a look at some JavaScript. So scripts.js, and let's just see what if we were to do something like var name equals Joe, but we leave a syntax error. Well, I can go to View, enable JS Lint, or if you prefer JS Hint, there's an extension, and you can see I've already brought that in. But we'll stick with JS Lint for the time being. And now we can see everything that it found. In this case, an unclosed string, save it, that updates, and now it wants a semicolon. And now it's working. So now we have immediate JS Lint or JS Hint debugging while we're coding without maybe having to switch to a console or a browser tab. Now, one thing that would be nice is if there was a little debugger, because one thing you'll find is, at least at the time of this recording, if I were to console.log hi there, we're going to get a JSLint error, and that's because JSLint doesn't understand that console is a global unless you tell it to recognize it as so. But if I were to switch and try to open up Chrome DevTools, and of course assuming that the script was imported, we would be able to see it, but then you would also see that it seemingly deactivates live preview. So notice if we were to then come back, we would have to rerun that again from your index file. So that's something to keep in mind. But that also means that it would be nice if there was just an easy way to have a quick debugger. And we can do that using an extension. So let's get this debugger extension. We'll click on the downloads link. And once again, we'll go through this process of installing the extension. So if I close brackets and we reopen it again to make sure that the plugin is recognized, let's get rid of that entirely, you'll find that now if we try to preview a file, and maybe once again we'll bring back begin.html, and I click live preview, now we have this debugger pop up. So we can also see a console, so 2 + 2, 4 + 4. So let's take a look at this now. Let's switch back to our script, which I need to open. Scripts.js. Well, you can see I've already gone ahead and imported those files for us. So we could say var product equals backbone.model.extend. And then maybe within here, we will set the defaults. And I don't know, maybe the default category will be general. So now if I save it, you'll see that JSLint immediately pops up because it's being pissy about some of the things that we've done here. Now, if we prefer, we can switch over, assuming you download the extension, to enable JS Hint. Now, if I save it, you'll see that it says no issues. So if we want to see our output, we could say var product equals a new product. Now, if I clear the console out and we try to console.log product.toJSON and I click save, you're not going to see anything show up. And again, that's because you need to make sure that it's being imported. It's going to expect that. So let's bring in scripts.js. Now notice that it does pop up, but because it's not the native debugger, this is something that you'll sometimes get object-object. So you have a couple ways to deal with this. Of course, you could be specific and say product.get category, save it, and that will update. You can pass in the category is toys, save it, and that automatically updates. So it gives you a little bit of live feedback. Another thing you could do maybe is, maybe you have a helper function during development. So var log equals a function. And what thing are we going to log? We will console.log json.stringify thing. Maybe something like that. And that way you could just do log product, and now thanks to our helper function, we get the stringified version. So category is toys, and name equals Turbo Man Doll. Save it, and it automatically updates. All right, so we've gone way over time, but I just wanted to show you a handful of the things in the editor that I think are pretty innovative, and I'm really excited to see what they have in store for 2013. At this point, it's still, I don't think, quite ready for prime time. It's good for demos and little projects. I would still stick with Sublime for now, but then again, maybe in 2013, things will change.